essentially, we've been held inside a 200 square metre compound, which was possibly one of the few bits of Tripoli that is still under Gaddafi control, or so they believed. But we had no idea that this was going on in the city around here. The TVs had been off because of the power cuts, the cable, the satellite had all gone. We had no idea that Tripoli was like this, and we had even a few newspaper journalists wander into the hotel this morning and say, guys, why are you still here? Why are you still here? Well, the reason we were still in the hotel is we had two gunmen loyal to Colonel Gaddafi who still believed that the city could be won by Colonel Gaddafi's forces. And they said they had been ordered by Colonel Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, to keep us inside, to keep us safe. It was remarkable that they still believed all of that, despite what was happening in the city around them.
But as the net closed on Gaddafi on the end of his regime, and as the net physically closed around the hotel, obviously your own personal safety and those of your colleagues must have been of paramount importance. Were there times when there were armed men walking around the place when you really feared the worst?
Yeah, there were. There were... At first, basically, the government minders in this hotel just left. They filtered away during Sunday. Then a few more men with guns. The guy who ran the foreign press service suddenly walked around the corridors with an AK-47. But we knew him. We'd been talking to him. And he'd always told us that if it came to it, he would defend his country. It was the next day that was more frightening. On the Monday morning, we woke up and there were gunmen in the hotel that we had never seen before. They, broadly speaking, left us alone. But as the power cuts lengthened, we had no washing water because of that. We started stockpiling the food supplies and the water supplies that were in there. And there were times when we wondered, well, look, these guys, the Gaddafi supporters, have been fed this diet for the last 6 months of conflict, that the West is trying to overthrow Colonel Gaddafi, that the West, countries like Britain, where I'm from, the media like the BBC and other channels, that they are the real enemy because they are the ones who support the rebel cause. And we wondered if our lives were at risk because of that, because clearly we were being seen as on one side of the conflict. Then there would be times when we thought, oh, there's no threat to us and it's all going to resolve itself and it's going to be fine. But
the government was almost using the hotel as cover, weren't they? They were broadcasting state television from the hotel. They were monitoring your communications. Did you ever feel like or you might be used as human shields, as the last defence of a regime that was desperate?
Yeah, that was the real fear, because the Rixos hotel, this huge hotel in Tripoli, which you've stayed in, it's a big complex. And I got to one point on Monday, sometime on Monday, where I thought, hang on a second, they're going to use this as a barracks for the army, for one last stand. And if they do that, then what's going to happen to us? Are we going to be dragged from our rooms? That was when all the journalists started sleeping out in the same corridor, just out in the hotel, knowing that if we needed to, we could run into what we thought was a relatively safe room. But we found out we had no viable escape route. We didn't know what was going on in Tripoli around us. We didn't know that, as we see now, the majority of the streets are in rebel control, and we didn't know that we would be safe. And it was real mind games. You've been in that hotel when the government's in control of it, and it was already propaganda and mind games. But in the middle of all this violence, with the battles flaring up around us, we could hear them but not see them. It just created this sort of sense of paranoia.